Howdy, friends, and welcome to The Storyfield. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At The Storyfield, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Hey, Storyfield. Say hello to Dr. Ben Edwards. Dr. Ben, thank you for making time, man. I'm really excited about today.
Hey, Josh, thanks for the invitation. Honored to be here.
Well, this is the first today for me because of you. This is my first podcast standing up. So
All right.
if I pass out during the time or something, then I'll just pause it and we'll get going. So I don't know if I can make it the whole time.
You better not pass out. That'd be bad advertisement for me.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, the Lord is doing so much in your life. It's so clear, Dr. Ben, and Ben is a medical doctor, and he's the founder of Veritas Medical, which is Veritas has 3 clinics in Lubbock, Abilene, and San Angelo, and they offer alternative or integrative medical options to treat, and manage symptoms. But where I heard about you, Dr. Ben, was through Veritas Wellness, which is your education platform that you help and you support and guide people, really to gain knowledge about the American diet and the lifestyle choices which have resulted in some of the sickest people in the world. So, I mean, just kind of consuming your information and content. You can hear Dr. Ben as well on his podcast, which is You're the Cure. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, and you can find all the episodes, from what I can tell, through the Veritas Medical channel on YouTube. And go to your website. What's your website, just so I don't forget it?
VeritasWellnessMember.com. We
Okay.
just turned that website on last month. VeritasMedical.com is the old website. It should redirect if people hear me say VeritasMedical.com on previous podcasts. But VeritasWellnessMember.com for
Okay.
sure will get you there.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you have some really new things which we're members of, and about to utilize just some of the really, really neat meshing of just the medical support, all the education, bunch of classes, content, and some cool things. So please check that out. So so there is a high probability that I might say something dumb, because this is a big world that's not my lane at all. So bear with me. Speak
It's
to
all
us
right.
as if we're not, medically educated. But we like to start at the Storyfield with hearing a little bit about your story, and then I want to end up. I would be really bad if I didn't end up in some of the, the 4 main pillars that you really talk about a lot, and just kind of dive into some of those. But first, let's start your story and kind of run it like on a life timeline a bit. And I want to hear, where you grew up and how you got to where you're at today, and talk about the Lord's involvement and all that as well. So can we start
Okay.
there?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Before I get in that timeline, I just want to tell you, no worries on the being medically ignorant, maybe, because I want to remind people, your great-great-grandparents, maybe 3 great-grandparents, whatever. I mean, back then, they didn't know anything medical.
Yeah, that's
They didn't
true.
know what a mitochondria was.
Yeah.
They didn't know what all these diagnoses that we have now, 100 new autoimmune diseases that are all brand new. I mean, these are within the last 100 years. So you don't need to know all this stuff. And that's part of what you'll hear in my stories, trying to convince people they're designed to be well. It's deception and accusation that keep us sick. And I'll explain that later. So it's okay. Trust your
Okay.
design, but we've been deceived on some things. So we'll kind of get there, I guess. But so my story, grew up in Central Texas, but down south of Waco, a little town. It's not too little now. It's just opened up its 2nd high school, both 5A, I believe. Belton is where I grew up. Kind of tiny. When I was there, both my granddads were doctors there in that town. And they were old school. docs that did it all. I was reading through some of their old stories the other day. They've both since passed, but I mean, they did everything. They've made house calls on everybody, delivered babies in people's bedrooms, set your broken bone, cut off, amputated your leg if you needed it.
Those
They
guys were
did.
the Wild West of
Yeah.
positioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were awesome. Of course, when I was born in 74, so they weren't doing a whole lot of that by the time I could remember and see things. But earlier in their career, that's what they were doing. It was awesome. But there were pillars in the community, deacons at the church, different civic organizations, just those, small town men of, stature and believers, and just love people, help people. So I grew up watching these guys just really influence the community in a positive way and help people. And so that was just in me, I guess, to help people. And went to undergrad at Baylor.
Okay.
Then changed my major 5 times.
Oh,
Trying to run away. Actually went political science for a little bit, thought about law school.
were you
Um,
thinking initially med school? I mean, the whole time. I mean, you grew up in that.
I
I
was,
mean,
yeah,
both grandpas.
that was in me. I was doing pre-med prerequisites, the sciences all through there, but I really didn't want to be in school that long, medical school residency. I
Yeah.
couldn't see that. I didn't want the debt, just all that, so I was really looking for something else to do and just nothing satisfied. So that summer before my senior year, I finally just gave in and
May the Lord wasn't going to let you get away from that. He said, "This is what I
that's
want for
it.
you." Yeah,
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 you can't run from that thing that he put in you. I mean,
yeah,
you can try, but it gets real
yeah.
tight and real hard. So anyways, and I didn't think I was smart enough. I mean, I was decent in school. My science GPA is like a 3.5. My MCAT was okay, kind of borderline. My advisors at Baylor were saying, I don't know. But when the Lord says go, you go. So I got accepted UT Houston Medical School, graduated from there in 2002. Texas Medical Center down in Houston's amazing. 2 medical schools there, Baylor and UT Houston, nursing school, pharmacy school, dental school. I mean, it's an amazing complex. MD Anderson, did most of my rotations there at MD Anderson. So I learned a lot of conventional medicine. It was great. Graduated from there thinking, I just learned everything there is to know to go out and help people. That's my motivation, help people. So go to Waco for residency, family practice residency. I chose Waco because there were no competing residencies. They didn't have orthopedic residents or OBGYN residents or pediatrician. So they called the family practice guys to do it all because I wanted to go to a small town, do it all. So I got to learn how to do colonoscopy, set broken bones, deliver babies, C-sections, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was everything. I mean, what a learning experience too. I mean,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
great. Waco was and it's known as a really good family practice residency program. I was chief resident there. Got voted that by my peers, not because I was the smartest guy, but I was kind of the nice guy, could get along with everybody and kind of keep the peace kind of thing. So got through there. That's 2005. My wife and I were praying about where to go, what small town to go to. And we'd looked at a bunch. I mean, pretty much every weekend we'd go just take off on the weekends, drive to some small town like
You had to come
Coleman.
by. You had to come by Stephenville, I'm sure.
I went
I
through
mean,
Stephenville. It
okay,
was a
you're
little
only an
too
hour away.
big.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
It was a little too big for us. So we went to
okay,
Comanche, went to Hamilton,
okay.
Mineral Wells, Eastland. We went up towards Alvord, north of Decatur. Then we went West Texas, more west, like Seymour, Coleman, Post, Tahoka, went up north to Canadian. I mean, we just take off. We went out to Alpine, looked around at Fort Davis. I mean, we're just looking and praying. Where should we go? Every town pretty much wanted us to come, but every town had at least one doctor already, except Garza County. They didn't have a doctor in the whole county.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so my wife and I were praying about it. And I didn't really think that was a place because the hospital had shut down in 96.
And that's Post
That's
area,
in
right?
Post. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
that's
For all you
Post.
people who may not know Garza, yeah.
Yeah, that's just south of Lubbock. And I thought, man, this can't be it because the hospital shut down and I love to deliver babies. That's was the one part of medicine that was sort of happy, joyful time. The rest of medical, it's more sad and depressing time. But they didn't have a hospital, so I couldn't do that. And I thought this ain't going to be the right place. But my wife and I were praying separately on it, and man, we both heard clearly, Garza County, that's where you need to be. So we went.
I love the Lord, man.
Yeah,
He's so good.
it was great. I mean, those guys were great. Just a small town, farmers and ranchers there, cotton farmers and ranchers. So Post is right on that cap rock. So on top of the cap, you got flatland, cotton farmers. Below the cap, it's rugged. You got the ranchers. It was a great little community. They got behind us.
And you got pump jacks.
Oh, there you go.
For
Yeah.
riding still in town. I gotta
Yeah,
get some context for the people who may not never, you gotta set the town stage. Yeah.
yeah. There's a certain smell of money in there.
Yeah,
That
it
oil
smells good.
fields.
It smells good driving by.
Yeah. So man, I thought I was living my dream. We got, contracted in there with the county clinic. And that it was great. I mean, they're real supportive. They got behind us, got good, community support. Had a great staff, great nurse, great office manager, just, small town country clinic. The town got behind it. We were able to turn that around for them. They had a nurse prac prior to me being there, and it was just struggling financially, losing 5 to 10,000 a month. The taxpayers were kind of making that deficit up with their taxing healthcare district. And so just spent 7 years there, rocking and rolling, doing what I was trained to do, which was seeing about 40 to 50 patients a day. And that kind of volume is how you make money to keep a county clinic open. I mean, everybody knows that. Medicaid, Medicare, they don't pay well. Private insurance pays a little more, but in a small town, you got a lot of Medicare, Medicaid payer. So you just got to see volume. So we did that. I was trained how to do that. And I was just living my dream. So I was doing the Friday night football game, team doctoring. I was doing the county jail, the juvenile detention center, the nursing home, house calls, kind of just doing all that stuff that I thought was my dream. The Washington Post somehow, Texas Monthly did an article on us. Not sure how they connected with us, but once I was featured in Texas Monthly, I think mostly on how do you be successful in a small town clinic, keep these doors open. It was during that Obamacare debate era.
Mhm.
So then Washington Post picked up on that. They asked if they could come down
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
followed me around for a week, which was hilarious. There's some stories.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
I mean, they stayed out at our house. I mean, we had little kids running around in the country, and these Washington Post reporters were
Oh my gosh.
who are these
Oh.
country bumpkins? But they put us on the front page of the Washington Post. So I mean, it's just like this.
That
Man,
reminds me, hang on, time out. That reminds me of a verse I thought about recently about I forget what it is. You may know somewhere in like the Peter area. I think it says like after some point, God will himself, like God will exalt you. I just think about you here in Post, Texas, for everybody who knows that. You drive through, it's fast. I mean, it's just small town, small community, but you ended up getting placed on the front page of the Washington Post.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So I'm kind of setting the stage here, not bragging. I'm just saying that UT Houston and Waco Family Practice, they trained us how to be the in this system, this health, I'll put that in quote, healthcare. It's really sick care. It's managing symptoms. We'll get into that later. But I knew my role and I played it the way I was trained to do it. I mean, they taught us how to do a 5-minute, 7-minute visit, but make the patient feel like I'm in there for 15, 20 by having good eye contact. Don't stare at your computer, pat them on the shoulder, the knee, make some human touch, but still you got to be out there in 7 minutes for this business model to work. It's script, write a script and shoot to the next one. I mean, so I did that. Learned that procedures, which is anything you do with your hands, pays more. So while I'm talking to you about your diabetes, I can look in your ear and find a bunch of earwax and pick it out. There's actually a medical code for removal of impacted cerumen in the ear, and that pays well. Taking off an ingrown toenail, cutting off a mole, freezing off a wart, whatever, cutting a sebaceous cyst out. I mean, you can do something with your hands while you're talking about chronic disease and writing prescriptions. You get the code for the procedure, you get the code for the office visit on diabetes. And so that's how you do it. And I wasn't going in there thinking I'm trying to find every way to make money. No, I mean, these are legit. It wasn't fraudulent. It was like hey, you got a complaint on something? Well, I don't need to send you to a dermatologist. I can do that easy. I can do a punch biopsy. I can cut that little thing out. So I just learned to be open to those things. And then I got, people around town knew that I could do these procedures. So it made money is what I'm going after here. So we're in the top 95th percentile of all clinics in America based off of the revenue. So the county clinic had contracted with a management company out of Lubbock, and they would come down every month to the monthly healthcare district meeting or the board meeting, and they'd bring this stack of financials and lay it on the table and go through them. And it was just, top, the number of visits, number of charges, the revenue. And so this was a model clinic in everybody's mind and in mine. So now we're on the front page of the Washington Post. We're making plenty of money. The county clinic, they built a brand new clinic. We were originally operating out of the old clinic, which was the 1950s hospital. They built $1 million clinic, paid for it. It was paid off in a year. And 1 year after they paid that bank note, that $1 million bank note, they had another $1 million in their savings account of the taxing entity because we were self-sufficient as a clinic. So what I'm setting the stage here for is everybody's happy. The taxpayers, they're super happy. They have $1 million in their bank with a brand new clinic paid for. We can lower taxes. The board's happy. The management company in Lubbock's happy. The patients are happy. They have a doctor in their little town. They haven't had a doctor in forever. I'm happy. I'm living my dream. We've got the fame with Washington Post. We had a TV show from New York call us, a reality TV show, want to follow us around and do a TV program. And my nurse, she's like,
please don't say yes to this, please.
That ain't going to fly down here in Garza County. Yeah. But I'm just saying, so we're famous, we're rich, we're this, we're that, all this stuff. But here's the but. The patients weren't getting any better. In fact, they're getting sicker. These kids coming in younger and younger ages. I had a 7-year-old I diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That's an adult diabetic, insulin resistant, obese, and he's 7 years old.
Oh, man.
Unbelievable. So I'm doing the physicals on the junior high and high school kids every year for the school. And so I'm tracking these kids over time. Wait a minute. Last year you were at this weight. Now you're at this weight. Your asthma is getting worse. You're on 2 inhalers. Well, this kid's got high blood pressure. This kid's got, these are kids with all this chronic junk. And man, it's just like something's off here. And I'm just adding the meds, more meds, and when I say they're getting sicker, I knew what to do. If your blood sugar's up, you write a prescription for metformin, which is your frontline, first line medicine for diabetes. So it would bring their sugar down for a little bit, for a year or two. But then they're back to get the refill. And wait a minute, your sugar's up, even though you're taking your medicine. Okay, well, let's just give you a higher dose. So we go higher dose. It will knock that sugar down for a while, and then it creeps up. Oh, now you need 2 different medications. Now you need 3. Now you need insulin. Same with blood pressure. The blood pressure, you have high blood pressure. Here's lisinopril. Here's hydrochlorothiazide. All right, brought it down. You're good. Come back next year, and it's up a little, or 2 or 3 years down the road, it's up a little. Oh, let's just increase your dose. Okay. And then now 2 or 3 years, you need a second blood pressure pill. You can do this across the board with acid reflux, migraine headaches, fibromyalgia, you name it. And some of these quote unquote diseases, there aren't good treatments for, like fibromyalgia. So anyways, I was doing what I was trained to do, writing the prescriptions, doing everything. But overall, people are just getting sicker and at younger and younger ages. And I had no idea that there was anything outside of this conventional. Both my granddads are MDs, 2 uncles are MDs. Great-great-granddad's an MD, never even heard the word chiropractor growing up, didn't know homeopathic, holistic, alternative, zero. That is not in my language, not in my culture growing up. I didn't know anything about it. So one looking for anything alternative. Now looking back, I can see, man, all they taught me in medical school to do was treat a symptom, manage a disease. And you can ask your doctor this, hey, do you reverse asthma or do you manage asthma? Yeah. Do you reverse diabetes or do you manage diabetes? Do you manage hypertension? Do you manage fill in the blank? And they will say yes to the management part. With that language is even in medical school. We're going to manage, we're going to have you well controlled, well managed. Yeah. So that's all I knew there was to do because that's all they trained me to do.
But that awareness started to come in and you started to step back and started to see all the kids and all your patients like, something's going on here. And you were
Yeah.
7 years in at this time, 7, 8 years.
Yep. And I mean, it's wasn't really even a conscious thought. It's more of a, man, this thing's kind of getting tough, seeing 50 a day and juggling nursing home and house calls and
Oh,
all the stuff. Like the whole burnout thing's kind of starting to get in my mind a little bit,
oh
but there's no
yeah,
way I can quit now. I've got 4 kids at home and,
yeah,
this is my dream and we'll just get it done and I'll hire a PA to help me. And you just learn to manage your workload.
yeah.
But as far as like looking at another way to do things, I wasn't looking for another way. I didn't know there was another way. If there was another way that was more beneficial, MD Anderson would have taught me that, is what I thought.
Yeah.
But then the truth got, boom, introduced to me real fast. And I don't know how much time we got, but there's a little tangent story here that's kind
No,
of,
we have time. Yeah, keep going.
I've got a,
There's always that moment. I love that. So I was waiting on this.
oh, here's a moment. I still laugh thinking back. So I've been asked many times to go on a medical mission trip from in medical school, residency. It just never worked out. Even my first years in post. But then I had a lady, good friend, down in post. They went to the Methodist church. We were at the Baptist church at the time. And she asked me to go to Malawi to see these orphans. They'd never seen a doctor in their whole life. And we prayed about it. My wife and I, she was 7 months pregnant with our 4th. And we just got clarity. We're supposed to go, and both of us, and we're supposed to bring our oldest boy, who at the time was 9. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And so it was like 2 days before we were going to go to Malawi. My sister, who lives down in Austin, she's a physical therapist. Well, now she works for me, but Emily sent me this email. Hey, Ben, check out this book by David Platt called Radical.
Oh,
And
don't read it.
it was a pretty distinctive cover,
Oh,
orange
yeah.
cover, upside down
Oh,
house,
that's awesome.
Radical. But anyways, I just delete, I didn't have time for that. I'm going to Africa
I
tomorrow.
love it.
Well, the very next day, I get my email from christianaudiobooks.com, their monthly special, Radical, David Platt. And I'm like, well, what a coincidence. Delete.
I know we're so slow. We're like,
Yeah. So go to Malawi. I'm not thinking about those books at all. I go to Malawi, me and my wife, and there's a lot of stories there, like church over there. Completely different, completely different deal. And the joy of the Lord these people had. They had nothing material wise, but the joy and the love of life and the love of the Lord. It's just hard. I can't even describe it. But anyways, 10 days, saw these orphans. On the 10th day, they sent us on a safari for R&R to kind of rest and relax. And my wife was 7 months pregnant. The safari was a 5-hour bumpy dirt road bus ride. So she stayed home in the tent. My son and I went, and we're driving through Malawi, get to the border at Zambia, because the park to do the safaris in Zambia. And I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, dirt road, out in the bush. And we get to the border crossing, and the border is a chain link fence. It's like 20 yards long, and then it just ends. There's no fence after that. And with a gate. And so we get off the bus, walk through the gate. I'm the first one through, show the passport to the guard at the little chain link gate, go through the gate. There's another bus on the other side. I hop up in the bus. I'm walking down that aisle to get to the back of the bus. There's nobody on this bus. I'm the first one on. I'm walking back, halfway back. Something catches my eye, and I look down the seat, and that book, Radical, it's sitting right there.
Oh, come on.
I'm telling you. I'm like, what? Wait
Oh
a
my
minute.
gosh.
I recognize that book.
Holy
And I
gracious.
started looking around the bus. I got down on the floor and looked underneath, like for someone hiding down there. I was looking out the windows is there a missionary somewhere here? Another white person?
Like, you're gonna read this book. Oh my gosh.
So between that book, just totally like opening my mind to, man, we're doing something with the American church is off. I'll put church in quotes because the church is his body. That's us. And then, my experience with the African church, reading David Platt's book, coming back to Garza County to church there. And my wife and I were both just, man, something's off with this thing. And we start asking the Lord, what he wants to do. We don't know what church is supposed to be, but we're pretty sure we know what it's not.
Right.
And what I'm sitting in right now is what it's not. I'm pretty sure. Nothing against, some church
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
there's good people, they love Jesus, but something was off. And we couldn't put our finger on it. We were both raised, going to church every week and Baptist, both of us, my wife and I. So we're just uneasy on things. And it was right after that, the Lord started opening some things up for us about the kingdom
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
institutional world ways of doing things. And I'm talking education, church,
Mhm.
medical,
Mhm.
these institutions of man,
Mhm.
the prince of the air, the ruler of this world's influence on that thing through deception. We accidentally submit to that thing and put it up as our savior and our idol and our security and just all that. It's such a sneaky, deceptive thing
Mhm.
that I feel peaceful when I have a 401k and I've got my good doctor report. I'm healthy. I've got this, I've got that, all this stuff to make us feel like we're good. And when those things are off, then, I'm not good all of a sudden. But anyway, so that was stirring in us. And kind of another little side tangent. This was, probably 5 years before. My wife and I, right when we moved to Post, we couldn't get pregnant.
Mhm.
And so our first kiddo down in Waco during residency, we got off birth control, pregnant the first month, no problem, had that first son, and then got back on birth control. And then according to our calendar, our plan, our ways, our timing, our smart thinking,
Yeah.
hey, we
Yeah.
want to have 4 kids. We want them 2 years apart. So we get off birth control to have number 2, and she doesn't get pregnant the first month or
Mhm.
the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth, sixth. We're now we're on this emotional roller coaster, checking that pregnancy test every month. Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? Oh, no, start your cycle.
Mhm.
And we're 12 months into this roller coaster, and that's officially infertile by
Oh,
doctor
wow.
standards. So then we spend 12 more months at the fertility doctor. By this time we moved to Garza County. So we're seeing the fertility specialist in Lubbock, 12 months. So 24 months. And one morning I was reading in Matthew, seek ye first the kingdom. And I just
Oh, yeah.
stopped right there. And I went and got Jamie and I said, look at this. This says seek first the kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
And we're seeking first a baby. And every month, every 30 days, seeking that thing so bad. And when we don't get it, we're crashing, especially Jamie. I mean, me too. I was sad, but it's this constant seek. No, we'll seek more. No, let's seek doctors. Let's seek fertility. Let's seek all this stuff. And anyways, it hit
Ooh.
me that day, and I'd read that verse a million times. And what
Oh,
I tell
yeah.
my patients, I'll tell my patients now, I mean, this has to be a personal revelation, a personal aha moment where that
Mhm.
word hits you and you see, and it's a level of I don't know what you call it, but it just hits you, resonates with you. So
Mhm.
we got down on our knees, we repented, changed our mind to follow the Lord in His ways, not our ways, in everything. Specifically in this one a big family, 4 kids thing, we laid it down. We said, that's it. No more 1 kid. Thank you for them. If that's what you have for us, we're good. Your ways are better than ours and higher than ours. We don't get your ways, but we're submitted to them in this family thing. But then we did say, and everything else, we want your ways. So we think we're supposed to be a small town country doctor. We're here in Garza County, but I mean, we verbally, at least, for sure in our heart with another kid in a pregnancy, we totally laid it down. But we honestly said, hey, you're for everything in our life. I mean, so that was way early. That was the first year in Garza County. But my very next breath, my next prayer in that moment was, you're going to have to show me what the kingdom is, because that verse says, seek the kingdom. And I have no idea what that means.
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
So show me what the kingdom is. And then my very next confession, now knowing what Jamie Winship and what he's
Oh,
teaching
yeah.
about being honest, I didn't know that back
Right.
then, but looking back, my very next prayer was, I believe, but help me with my unbelief.
Yeah.
Because I'd been under that Darwinian evolutionary biology teaching for 12 plus years. And all my mentors, professors, idol kind of doctor world, they were all evolution, evolution, evolution. And in my mind, Genesis and evolution, you can't really mesh them. So I had a lot of unbelief, even though I was raised in a religious upbringing. But so I confessed that.
Oh, yeah.
So that was way early. That was the first year in Garza County. And the Lord just started bringing these scientists into my life back then. It was amazing. Just scientifically proving the fraud of Darwin.
Yeah.
And now pretty much most even atheists, high-level PhD, university-level atheists realize, Darwin, he didn't know what he's talking about. So it must be aliens that seeded, from some universe far away.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyways, that was kind of background stuff. So I had all that going, trying to seek the kingdom. What is the kingdom? The Darwin thing had to be dealt with. Doubt and unbelief had to be dealt with. Religion had to be dealt with. Then the Africa trip was 5 years after. We come home from that, reading David Platt's book, just all the stuff. And we're feeling like, man, something big's about to happen in our life. Jamie and I both, man, the Lord's about to do something. Is he going to move us to Africa?
Oh, yeah.
And my wife was kind of nervous about that. So was I, but kind of fearful. Okay, well, one Africa. But what happened was my nurse practitioner in Garza County had a divine encounter that the Lord used to draw me and open my eyes to the truth in medicine. So that divine encounter he and his wife went to a bed and breakfast one weekend up in Amarillo just to get away for the weekend. And my nurse prac back then, he had celiac disease, which means you can't eat gluten or your gut gets really inflamed and all these symptoms in your gut. So anyways, he goes there, tells the innkeeper, I need a gluten-free pancake in the morning. She says, sure, I can make that for you. But there's a doctor here that could cure you of that. And my nurse practice
Oh,
like,
come on. Let's go.
no, that you don't cure celiac. You're crazy. And he just kind of blew her off. But he was there for the whole weekend, and the doctor's office was in the bed and breakfast. And so he's right there, and the innkeeper keeps saying, you need to go talk to him. He could cure you. He could. And finally, just to shut the lady up, Shane goes and talks to this doctor, Roby Mitchells. And Roby has since passed, but Roby told him some things that convinced my nurse prac to implement these stewardship, really is what it was. So my nurse prac does what he says to do. 3 or 4 months later, the nurse prac comes to me and says, hey, I'm healed. I'm cured of my celiac.
Gosh.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I didn't know anything he was doing. He didn't even tell me about this whole experience till he knew that he was cured. So he comes to me, and I noticed with my nurse prac, he was trimming up a little bit. His complexion was better. His energy, his mood, all this, like, man, you're kind of looking healthy.
So the light's already blinking for you anyway. So Lord just teeing you up.
Yeah. So he told me, yeah, I cured my celiac, or this doctor told me some things to do. And I'm like, whatever, get back to work. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And so he went to prove himself. He went and got a burrito that the drug reps had brought breakfast burritos that morning. Normally he wouldn't even get in the same room with a wheat tortilla. And he ate that tortilla. And at lunch, he went to Holly's and got a hamburger. And then that afternoon, he ate cookies from a drug rep, brought cookies from Slayton Bakery.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that 3 big exposures in one day, and he was totally fine. Came to work the next day, totally fine. Normally, he would have been sick for a day or 2 or 3, bloody diarrhea, cramps, all this stuff. He was fine. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And I mean, I'm processing this thing like this shouldn't be happening. And Shane's telling me he's cured. He ate this stuff. I don't see any symptoms. Maybe he's lying to me. Maybe he's deceived. Maybe he's, maybe it's some placebo effect. Maybe he got miracle cure. God can do a miracle in a moment. He can do what he wants. I was just going through these things in my head. But one of the things was, maybe this doctor in Amarillo told him to do something that actually worked.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was a moment of just in my mind, man, I got to make a decision here. I can either ignore all this, which there's no way Shane, my nurse practitioner, was going to let me ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's all in now. He's like, man, if this works for this, what else could it work for? So I, at that moment, made a decision. because I knew I was going to have another celiac patient come to the office someday.
Yeah.
So was I going to tell that patient, keep eating gluten-free the rest of your life? Or was I going to tell that patient, there's actually two options. I'm going to present both to you. You decide.
Yeah.
Eat gluten-free the rest of your life. That's what I learned in medical school. That's called standard of care. Here's an alternative thing. I don't know anything about it. My nurse prac did it. He got better. Maybe that was a one-off. I don't know, but I'm going to at least tell you about it. And if you want to explore that, okay. So I made that moral, ethical decision that I'm going to give the option, even though I had no idea anything about it.
Oh, that took some faith right there. Anyways, like, I mean, you're putting yourself out. I mean,
Yeah. So I thought, man, I got to call this doctor in Amarillo if I'm going to be like given an option. I don't know what this guy's even doing. And if Shane's going to be given this option as my nurse prac and I'm his overseeing physician, I got to know what this is about. So, I mean, I'm telling you what I said earlier, clueless about alternative.
Yeah.
I literally am clueless about anything alternative. Now, side note, if your listeners don't know, you need to know. If you're a part of the traditional United States healthcare system and seen a conventionally trained United States healthcare trained medical school trained doctor, you're on the last place team. That system gets the worst health outcomes of any healthcare system in the world. We die the youngest. Our longevity, we die younger than any other country, any industrialized country. We're dead last on longevity and dropping. It's not even close, actually. Infant mortality, we're number one. More of our babies die by far, not even close. More of our babies are dying in the first year of life than any other country. Maternal mortality rates, that's a woman within a year of childbirth dying, blowing it out of the water. We're number one by far. Number of kids with a chronic disease, number of young adults 18 and up with a chronic disease, number of middle-aged and older adults with a chronic disease. By far, not even close. We're number one, blowing it out of the water.
wow.
Number of prescription drugs, young people and old people both. We're number one by far. Number of surgeries, number of scans, number of medical procedures, by far number one. Number of healthcare dollars spent, by far number one. So let me paint this picture. We're spending the most money, going to the doctors the most, taking the most drugs to come in dead last place.
Yeah.
People don't understand this. People have been deceived into thinking we're the best and we're the worst. And it's not even close. And later in the show, we'll drill down into as to the why behind that, because it didn't used to be that way. 100 years ago, it wasn't that way. We're one of the healthiest and hardly going to the doctor at all. And in 100 years, we've just totally plummeted.
Yeah,
So we'll talk
shocking.
about why. But anyway, so do we need an alternative? Absolutely. Yeah. We're dying, we're sick, and it's awful. But we'll get into that later. Back to the story. So I call this doctor up. I'm like, okay, my nurse prac, he's not having any symptoms from celiac. He's eating wheat. What are you doing? Number one, who are you? What are you? What are you doing? What kind of quackery stuff are you preaching?
Yes.
And he starts saying stuff like, Ben, if you weren't born with it, then you probably don't need to keep it. Meaning any disease you weren't born with, something caused it. It's a consequence to something. Be a good doctor, a good detective, track that thing back and just really figure out what the body needs that it's not getting and what is the body being exposed to that it's not supposed to be. Do those two things. Give the body what it needs, avoid what it doesn't, sit back and watch this patient, quote unquote, get cured, which you can't use that word. You can't cure diabetes, cure cancer, cure heart disease, cure anything. The only way you can cure anything is that FDA has a patent on that word.
Yeah.
You cannot make a claim of cure or even treatment unless the FDA has approved that thing to say that treats X disease or cures X disease. Just side note there. So I'm not going to say anybody's curing anything. You're the cure, the name of my podcast. I mean, we can say that because I'm not making the claim that I'm giving you any snake oil to cure you of anything, but your body's got the cure. That's what we have this disconnect I mean, we don't insert like a paper cut. If you got a paper cut today, no one's going to freak out about a paper cut. You're not even going to think twice about it. You might put a Band-Aid on it if it's really bleeding and you don't want to get blood on your nice shirt. But other than that, you're not going to worry about it. Your body's designed to put a clot on that thing so you're not going to bleed to death. Your body's designed. I actually cut my finger last week with a knife, carving up a ham, and there's a little tiny scab on there. I'm not even thinking about it. But the intricacies of that clotting system is amazing. If you knew the science behind that thing, it's waiting in the background to trigger at a moment's notice when there's tissue damage, a certain chemicals release, and then that cascades to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So it puts just enough clot on there, not too much. I mean, if it's on a razor's edge, and if it tips and you start making blood clots, for no reason, you die.
Yeah.
And if it tips the other way and you don't start clotting quick enough, you actually could bleed to death from a paper cut. I mean, just that clotting cascade, it's amazing, but we don't think twice about it. The body heals itself, fixes itself. Same with the broken bone. Just get them sort of closely lined up. They'll knit together. You don't have to do a thing. Your body's designed to keep blood pressure down, to keep blood sugar down, to keep acid out of your esophagus and down in your stomach where it needs to be. That's a whole nother conversation. Acid reflux isn't from too much stomach acid. It's from not enough, but maybe we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
My point is the body knows how to fix itself. So back to Dr. Mitchell, he was saying stuff like this. If you weren't born with it, you don't have to keep it. There's no such thing as diseases. They're all consequences. Just this stuff that kind of resonated sort of in my spirit, man. But then my intellectual man jumps up and says, there's no way.
I know. I'm just thinking there's got to be such a conflict in you
massive
at that time. Like, man, this seems so true. It seems so right. But like, this is what I've been trained and this is what I know.
Yeah. And then in one moment, he said, type 2 diabetes, Ben, is totally reversible.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember that night going home because he told me some guy to YouTube, watch this guy on YouTube. He's an engineer. I forget the guy's name, but he reverses his own diabetes. He's not a doctor. And here on YouTube, he shows all his labs. He goes through what he did, and you'll see his diabetes goes away. And it blew my mind. This was 12 years ago. I'm like, there's no way type 2 diabetes is reversible. There's no way. If that's true, because half of Garza County's diabetic.
Yeah.
The other half is probably pre-diabetic. And I think right now, 80% of Americans are pre or full-blown diabetic. And if you're diabetic, then you massively increase your rates and risk of cancer, Alzheimer's, heart attacks, strokes, all kinds of stuff. Just from elevated blood sugar, you're automatically increased risk of all these other diseases. So in my mind, I'm thinking, man, if you can reverse diabetes, talk about helping somebody out as far as reducing their future risk of all this stuff. I'm like, there is no way. I went home that night. And this after long days, saw 50 patients. I'm worn out, got the 4 kids at home, talked to the wife, and we go to bed. And I throw up the laptop and I Google this guy. I'm watching these YouTubes all night long. I'm watching this. I'm waking my wife up. I'm at 3 a.m. Babe, you won't believe this. This guy reversed his diabetes. It was just shocking to me, which is funny to hear me say this right now because just got a text last week from my old buddy down in Post. He's the vet down in Post, and he said I could say his name and tell his story in public. Kerry Wink, Dr. Wink, Garza County Animal Hospital. So he texts me November 1st of 23. Hey, doc, and I hadn't talked to him in ages. Hey, doc, I just went to the clinic down here in Post. They drew my blood. My A1C is a 12.1, which if you don't know, that's a 3-month blood sugar average of about 400. So for 90 days, he's been cruising about 400 and you need to be about 100.
Yeah.
He texts me that November 1st. He's like, they gave me a bunch of prescriptions. I don't really want to do that. What do I do? I'm like, okay. Shot him a little text. I don't know how long the text was, not super long. Number 1, go sign up with our wellness navigators because they can walk with you through this. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to seem like foreign language, although it's not. It's eat real food. If God made it, eat it. You need sunshine every day. You need to move every day, every hour. Don't sit for more than 2 hours in a row. You need to remineralize. So go drink some sea salt. You need a lot of it. You are demineralized, just like your cows and your horses you work on at your vet clinic. They got to have a salt block, a mineral block.
Yeah.
So do you. Get a mineral
Yeah.
block on your desk and lick it
Yeah.
every time you walk by. You need resistance training. You need muscle mass. That's where your insulin resistance at. You need good sleep. You need oxygen all night. So make sure you don't have sleep apnea. Tape your mouth shut if you need
Yeah.
to. I mean, I just boom, 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 bullet pointed like
Yeah.
5 or 6 things. And I knew he'd have questions on it. So I said, get with my health coach.
Yeah.
He texted me last week, February 1st. That was his 90-day check. His A1C is a 6.1, which is an average close to about 110, 120-ish. He's almost there. We like people to be in the mid 5s, so he's real close. Another 90 days, he'll be there. And my point is,
Oh my gosh.
and my dad did the same thing. He's 77, works for Xerox. He works from home now. He's vice president of some division. He works down in Belton on the lake there, Lake Belton, has a condo, looks out on the lake, but he's sitting all day in front of a computer. He's eating Bluebell ice cream every night. He goes to his doctor for his annual Blue Cross Blue Shield Xerox funded checkup. A1C 11.
Wow.
He'd been noticing he's been more fatigued. His muscles have been just kind of deteriorating. He's shuffling his gait. He's old man, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. He's tired. He thought he's just getting old. A1C is 11, average blood sugar 350. Same thing. He doesn't even call me. He calls my sister, Emily, who's the head of our corporate wellness, and she's one of our health coaches. Emily meets him down in Marble Falls or Georgetown at a cafe. Tells him what to order on the menu. Here's how you're going to eat out. Here's how you can eat out off a menu. Here's what you're going to do. And here's what you're going to do at home. And you're going to go move. You're getting out of that chair. You're going to walk up and down this hill at the lake. You're going to get in the pool with some weights. Anyways, in 3 months, his A1C is like a 6. Well, and I'm just saying, it's like no brainer now. I mean, type 2 diabetes, pretty much. I mean, yeah, the body will fix itself. But back then, I was clueless. I'm like, there's no way. And I watch that YouTube video. I wake up my wife. My mind is blown. But I'm seeing these patients still at Garza County. I'm so busy. And that cognitive dissonance is going. And I'm like, oh, how could this be? I'm talking to that doctor pretty routinely. I'm picking them, trying to poke through. Like, there's got to be something's. And I mean, he just keeps coming with truth.
I bet
I'm
he
like,
loved
dang
that
it.
too. I bet he was like, here's another one. Yeah. He was like, yeah.
And so one day I just called him. I'm kind of getting fed up because I'm staying up late now, watching YouTubes, reading stuff. He's sending me articles to read, books to read, and I'm seeing all these 50 patients a day. I've got the kids. I'm busy.
Oh,
I'm staying
yeah.
up late. I'm starting to learn this. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I call him up. I said, hey, Roby, can you send me like just one book that sort of summarizes all this alternative medicine? And he was like, alternative? What do you mean alternative? And I'm like, well, this kind of different sort of hocus pocus quack stuff that people say is quack. I'm like, and he's like, Ben, Mr. Big Shot down there in Garza County on the front page of the Washington Post. Next time at your clinic, they just built you down there. You're going to grow out of that thing. You're going to need to build an addition to that clinic someday. And when you do need to add on to that clinic, who are you going to call to design it? You're going to call the engineer or the alternative engineer? Next time you need to go to a medical conference, you're going to call the aviation guys to fly you there or the alternative aviation guys. Next time your car's making a weird noise, you're going to take it to the mechanic or the alternative mechanic. He said, Ben, God put laws into this realm, into the natural realm and the spiritual realm. You've got to know them, understand them, and live by them. And if you don't, there's consequences to that. You jump off a 5-story building, you're coming to the ground and you're going to probably be hurt. And that doesn't mean because God doesn't love you, but he expects you to operate in the parameters of the natural realm that he built for you. That actually he told you to take dominion and steward. And you need to do that. And we're not doing that. Nobody understands that you can't drink high fructose corn syrup all day. You cannot take vegetable oils, cottonseed, soybean, corn oil, canola. You cannot press these hard seeds, get that rancid, PUFA, industrialized, adulterated seed oils. You can't sift out the wheat and remove the 70 different nutrients God put into wheat. Wheat and carbs, that's not the problem. It's man food, adulterated, sifted wheat. And that's what started happening in the 1920s. They ground that wheat and then they sifted the germ They left the protein and starch, the germ and the bran out because the germ and the bran go rancid. If you leave them in, that whole bag of flour is going rancid. We got to take that out so we can have shelf life. So now we got the shelf life, so it can sit on that grocery store shelf and we can ship it all over the country, no problem. It can sit there for years, actually, because all it is protein and starch.
Yeah.
Well, just so happens there are 0 nutrients of the 70 nutrients I said God put into that wheat for us. We sifted it out because it's in the germ and the bran. It's going to the feed yard.
Yeah. So you were learning all this. So I want to get into this on our next episode. So don't go too far down the nutrition stuff because I think that's where we'll head next. Keep talking on as we kind of land here in the next 10 minutes or so. And then, we're going to pick up on our next episode about the nutrition. I want to get into that.
Yep.
But so you were consuming information from your Amarillo doctor who was just really blowing your mind. Was it a slow on-ramp and you just started to make transitions into how you're, speaking with your patients and,
Yeah.
guiding
So
them?
it happened pretty quick. So basically it was after that diabetes, when he said you can reverse diabetes. I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I had an old man come see me. He's an old former coach, 74 years old, my patient in post. I've been there 7 years. So I know this guy, go to church with him. I know him. And he was on 9 medications. I'm the one that prescribed them all. He was on 4 diabetes pills. They weren't working. His sugar's still high. So he needs insulin. And I told him, and he's like 330 pounds. I said, you need insulin. Your sugar, these meds aren't working anymore. I'm sorry. Your diabetes is too severe, too far gone. He said, Doc, I'm not giving myself a shot ever. I don't care. I'll die. If I die tomorrow, I don't care. And I said, well, I do have this other potential option for you. There's a doctor up in Amarillo. He don't believe in diabetes. He don't.
Yes.
He says it's a consequence, not a disease. If you want to go see him, I mean, I don't even really know much about him. He could be crazy, but it's your life. You're not going to do the insulin. I don't have anything else for you. Well, he jumped at it. Heck yeah, I will. And really it was that Dr. Amarillo got tired of arguing with me. He said, go find your 10 sickest patients, send them up here to Amarillo. I'll see them. I'll send them back to you and they're going to be cured and you're going to get convinced and I'll quit arguing with you.
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
okay, you're on. Because I had some really sick people that'd been to all the specialists, been to Tech here in Lubbock, or been to Dallas, to Southwestern, fibromyalgia, lupus, depression, chronic urticaria, chronic prostatitis, some weird autoimmune stuff, all kinds of stuff. That they've been to all the specialists. They were like, they're stuck. I'm not better. I'm suffering. And these 10 patients went and they all came back better. And I'm talking, most of them were all the way better off their meds. Like the 330-pound, 74-year-old on 9 meds, he's off all of them except for a half of 1 blood pressure pill. And his sugar's normal. His blood pressure's normal. He has no more acid reflux and his joint pain's gone. He's sleeping like a baby. Comes back to me and says, thank you for referring me to that doctor. And he's crying. He's like, I'm out of my recliner. I can tie my own shoes and see my feet now. And I'm out in the garden, working in the garden and playing with my grandkids. I have my life back.
Oh my
So it was
gosh.
after those
Yeah.
10 patients, I'm like, man, I got to do this. I'm going to offer it as an option. I'll keep doing old school way, 50 patients a day, but I'm going to offer this. And if people choose this, I'm going to tell them to do a follow-up, schedule a follow-up for 1 hour. I told my office staff, we're going to do 1-hour visits. If anybody chooses option 2, fix it. So I go to the hospital board and I told them, guys, I'm not going to advertise it. I'm not going to go out there preach it. But if someone is in the office and asks me to help them reverse their reflux, reverse their diabetes, reverse their hypertension or whatever, then I'm going to give them an hour. So if we have enough people,
That's insane in that model you were operating, right?
it doesn't work. So they knew
yeah.
it wouldn't work. I knew it wouldn't work. I tried to ride the fence. We tried to bring in another doctor and kind of play this game and do that, have a foot in both worlds. And the Lord said, no. And it was a Friday afternoon that the company up in Lubbock, the management company, called me and said, you're out, be out by Monday morning.
Oh, wow.
So I called my wife, said, meet me at the clinic with the truck. We got to clear out. We got to be out this weekend. And, that's where it all ended. And Veritas started. We're laying there in bed. I said, I'm going to start my own thing. We're going to charge cash only. I'm going to get one of those little square things on my phone. I'll just swipe a card and it'll go right into our account. People come see me. I'm paying. They'll pay for my time and I'll give them what I have at that moment. I didn't think I had that much, but the Lord said, do it. So I rented a $100 office from the Farm Bureau agent down on Main Street in Post, Texas. She had a little extra office, and I bought a used office desk and chair and a laptop. I was all in for about 500, and people started coming. I gave them what I had, which wasn't much, and their body started fixing itself and getting well, and they'd go to church and tell 2 of their friends, and then those 2 would come, they go tell 5 people, and it just grew and grew and grew. And over some years, we got too busy and too big of a wait list. So I hired a PA and a nurse prac and another PA and another nurse prac, and we just grew it. The Lord grew it. And now it's 12 years later, and we got the 3 clinics and 6 or 7 nurse pracs. And so that leads us up to basically now, last month, when we launched Veritas Wellness. We can get into that maybe in the next show. The 4 pillars: nutrition, stewardship, accusation and deception I mentioned. So the Lord told me in 22, it was our 10-year anniversary of Veritas, and that's a story right there we can get into later. He said, flip it. The first 10 years was your way. Now it's my way. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I thought I was doing it your way. He's like, no, flip it. And he was meaning the 4 pillars: nutrition, hydration, movement, peace. No, peace.
Okay,
Movement,
yeah.
hydration, nutrition. So we flipped it. This wellness thing, you don't need a doctor. A doctor can treat symptoms. Even this doctor and all my nurse pracs, all we're doing is treating symptoms, buying you some time, suppressing these outrageous symptoms that are you think you're taking you down. Clear some space so you can get to the truth. And the truth will set you free. There is so much there that we've learned that, man.
I know.
Maybe in the part 2 we can get into that.
Well, let's land the plane right now. So give somebody, because maybe somebody who's listening hears all this. It's incredible, man. Like that. I love the Lord, and I love what he's done in your life and in a major industry. So, but somebody may feel a little bit overwhelmed as far as like, ooh, I don't want to listen to part 2. I'm a little nervous because I've been getting managed forever, or I've not been doing under the old model. Encourage us as we land the plane, and then they can tune in for the next episode.
Yeah. Well, probably the biggest encouragement I can give you is some stats on heart disease, because that's the #1 killer. It used to not exist. Almost 700,000 people this year are going to die from heart disease. And the first heart attack in existence in the United States was in 1912. There was one, the first one ever, and it was only one that year. And it's gone from 1 in 1912 to 700,000 people dying in 100 years. It's not your genes. Okay. It is not your genes, and it's not the germ. The gene theory, germ theory, it's all about the terrain. You're not a victim. You got control over this thing, and it's not actually that hard to eat real food, get up and move, get some sunshine. It's a lack of knowledge. We're destroyed from lack of knowledge, because you refuse knowledge. It said, I always forgot to read that second part. Yeah. So what we're here to do and try to help people, #1 is open your eyes to the truth that we've been deceived. #2, bring that truth in easy nuggets that you can consume and make simple shifts. Quit using just table salt. That's 3 minerals. You need 72 minerals. So go buy some sea salt next time your salt shaker's empty. That's easy. Make some easy, one step at a time. It's not that hard. And before you know it, your blood sugar and blood pressure and heartburn and all the things.
Okay, this is good.
We don't have to be sick. We can be well. It's not that hard. And you can keep treating your symptoms, keep going to your doctor, but over time, you're not going to need the meds. That's what happens.
Okay, that's going to be a perfect landing space. So for people tuning in today, and tell us the website one more time so they can tune in. Hey, I want to check Ben out before the next episode. So it's a Veritas Medical member.
VeritasWellnessMember.com.
Okay,
VeritasMedical.com will probably get you there. It should redirect, but VeritasWellnessMember.com.
Okay, perfect. And we'll post that on the show notes. So, hey, Dr. Ben Edwards, thanks for making time today. Oh, what a story. This is awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Bet.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the Storyfield podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The Storyfield.